Good afternoon, students. So, today we'll start with the next topic of this chapter, human reproduction, that is the female reproductive system. So, the female reproductive system consists of a pair of ovaries along with a pair of oviducts, uterus, cervix, vagina, and the external genitalia located in the pelvic region. These parts of the system, along with a pair of the mammary glands, are integrated structurally and functionally to support the process of ovulation, fertilization, pregnancy, birth, and childcare. So, ovaries are the primary female sex organs, as we discussed yesterday also, and they produce the female gamete, that is ovum, and several steroid hormones, which are also known as ovarian hormones. The ovaries are located one on each side of the lower abdomen. Each ovary is about 2 to 4 centimeters in length and is connected to the pelvic wall and uterus by ligaments. Each ovary is covered by a thin epithelium which encloses the ovarian stroma. The stroma is divided into two zones, a peripheral cortex and an inner medulla. The oviducts, that is the fallopian tubes, uterus and vagina, constitute the female accessory ducts. Each fallopian tube is about 10 to 12 centimeters long and extends from the periphery of each ovary to the uterus. The part closer to the ovary is the funnel-shaped infundibulum. The edges of the infundibulum possess finger-like projections which are known as fimbriae, which help in the collection of the ovum after ovulation. The infundibulum leads to a wider part of the oviduct known as ampulla. The last part of the oviduct, isthmus, has a narrow lumen and it joins the uterus. The uterus is single and it is also called womb. The shape of the uterus is like an inverted pear. It is supported by ligaments attached to the pelvic wall. The uterus opens into vagina through a narrow cervix. The cavity of the cervix is called cervical canal, which along with vagina forms the birth canal. The wall of the uterus has 3 layers of tissue: the external thin membranous perimetrium, middle thick layer of smooth muscles myometrium, and an inner glandular layer called endometrium that lines the uterine cavity. The endometrium undergoes cyclical changes during menstrual cycle, which we'll discuss a little later, not in today's lecture, while the myometrium exhibits strong contraction during the delivery of the baby. The female external genitalia include mons pubis, labia majora, labia minora, hymen, and clitoris. So you can see in the diagram all these different parts, and this diagram is also very important, children. You should draw this diagram because it is very important. Next is the sectional view of this ovary. In this, if we cut open the section of the ovary, you see it's something like this. So we will take up the section of this ovary now. So here you can see that the ovary is a solid organ and it is composed of the connective tissue stroma wrapped by a layer of cuboidal cells, the germinal epithelium. followed by a layer of flattened cells, the visceral peritoneum. The stroma consists of the outer ovarian cortex and central ovarian medulla. The ovarian medulla contains many rounded or oval bodies known as ovarian follicles or Graafian follicles, which are at various stages of development. Each follicle consists of a large ovum surrounded by many layers of follicle cells. The follicle cells of a maturing follicle secrete estrogens into the blood. Once a month, the most mature ovum from one ovary is released. The ovarian cortex contains young and mature follicles. It may also contain a large mass of yellow cells, the corpus luteum, formed in the antrum or the cavity of an empty Graafian follicle after the release of its ovum. The cells of the corpus luteum contain a yellow pigment called lutein and secrete the hormone progesterone during pregnancy and the hormone relaxin towards the end of the pregnancy. The ovarian cortex may have a white body or corpus albicans representing a degenerating corpus luteum. So this is all you can see in the sectional view of an ovary. I hope you understood. So next we'll take the process of gametogenesis. Now what is gametogenesis? It is the process of formation of haploid gametes from the undifferentiated diploid germ cells in the gonads for sexual reproduction. So this process includes the male gamete, formation of the male gamete as well as the formation of the female gamete. So the formation of the male gamete is known as spermatogenesis and formation of the female gamete is known as oogenesis. We'll take both these one by one. First of all, we'll take the spermatogenesis. Here in the diagram, you can see the schematic representation of spermatogenesis. So in the immature male germ cells, that is the stomatogonia, they produce sperms by the process of spermatogenesis, and this begins at puberty. So the spermatogonia present on the inner wall of the seminiferous tubule multiply by mitosis and increase in number. Each spermatogonium is diploid and contains 46 chromosomes. Some of the spermatogonia, called primary spermatocytes, periodically change and undergo meiosis. A primary spermatocyte completes the first meiotic division, that is the reductional division, leading to the formation of two equal haploid cells called secondary spermatocytes, which have only 23 chromosomes each. Is that clear? So the secondary spermatocytes undergo the second meiotic division to produce 4 equal haploid spermatids. The spermatids are transformed into spermatozoa or sperms by another process which is known as spermiogenesis. After spermiogenesis, sperm heads become embedded in the Sertoli cells and are finally released from the seminiferous tubules by the process of spermiation. So here you heard three different terms. First was spermatogenesis, second was spermiogenesis, and the third was spermiation. right? So spermatogenesis starts at the age of puberty due to significant increase in the secretion of the hormones, that is the gonadotropin releasing hormone, right? So this increased level of the gonadotropin releasing hormone then acts at the interior pituitary gland and stimulates the secretion of the two gonadotropins, that is the LH and the FSH. LH acts at the Leydig cells and stimulates synthesis and secretion of androgens, which in turn stimulate the process of spermatogenesis. So the FSH acts on the Sertoli cells and stimulates the secretion of some factors which help in the process of spermiogenesis. Is that clear? So now we shift to the next one, that is oogenesis. Here you can see the diagram, the schematic representation of oogenesis. The process of formation of a mature female gamete is known as oogenesis, and it is different from spermatogenesis. Oogenesis is initiated during the embryonic development stage when a couple of million gamete mother cells called oogonia are formed within each fetal ovary. No more oogonia are formed and added after birth. Please remember this. These cells start division and enter into prophase 1 of the meiotic division and get temporarily arrested at this stage, known as primary oocytes. So the division is arrested at which stage? At prophase 1 of the meiotic division. So each primary oocyte then gets surrounded by a layer of granulosa cells and is called primary follicle. A large number of these follicles degenerate during the phase from birth to puberty. So at puberty, only 60,000 to 80,000 primary follicles are left in each ovary. The primary follicles get surrounded by more layers of granulosa cells and a new theca and are then known as secondary follicles. The secondary follicle soon transforms into a tertiary follicle, which is characterized by a fluid filled cavity known as antrum. The theca, which is organized into an inner theca interna and an outer theca externa. It is at this stage that the primary oocyte within the tertiary follicle grows in size and completes its first meiotic division. It is an unequal division resulting in the formation of a large haploid secondary oocyte and a tiny first polar body. So see the difference here. The secondary oocyte retains bulk of the nutrient rich cytoplasm of the primary oocyte. So the polar body, which is born out of the first meiotic division, may divide further or it may degenerate. At present we are not very certain about this. The tertiary follicle further changes into the mature Graafian follicle. The secondary oocyte forms a new membrane called zona pellucida surrounding it. The Graafian follicle now ruptures to release the secondary oocyte, that is ovum, from the ovary by the process known as ovulation. So this is how you see only one functional ovum is formed at the end of the meiosis, whereas in the spermatogenesis all the four spermatids, they are functional, whereas in the female during the process of oogenesis, as a result of first meiotic division, first polar body is formed and the secondary oocyte is formed, and then at the second division, the second polar body, and the ovum is formed. I hope it's clear to you. This is very important. Now we'll take up the hormonal control of the male reproductive system. So coming to the hormonal control, that is the hormones which control it and how is their positive and negative feedback controlled, that is what we are going to see here in this diagram. So the growth, maintenance and functions of secondary sex organs like epididymis, vasa differentia, penis and accessory glands, that is prostate, seminal vesicles, Cooper's glands, etc., are under the control of male hormones, mainly testosterone secreted by Leydig cells of testes. Similarly, growth, maintenance and functions of seminiferous tubules of the Leydig cells are regulated by follicle stimulated hormone, that is FSH, and interstitial cell stimulating hormone, that is ICSH, of anterior pituitary, that is adenohypophysis. So the release of FSH and ICSH in turn are regulated by the release of hypothalamic gonadotrophin releasing hormone from hypothalamus. Sertoli cells of the seminiferous tubules are also responsible for secretion of androgen binding proteins, also known as ABP, and inhibin protein. ABP is thought to play a role in the process of spermatogenesis by contracting testosterone in seminiferous tubules. Inhibin suppresses the FSH secretion. So this is the hormonal control of the male reproductive system, how the secretions they are stimulated in the positive way and how they are inhibited for negative feedback control. Next we take up the female reproductive hormonal control. So here is the hormonal control of the female reproductive system. Students, you have to draw all these diagrams. They are all very important. Whatever we are doing is very important. So please be attentive. So we'll start with the hormonal control of the female reproductive system during the puberty. So at puberty, hypothalamus releasing gonadotrophin releasing hormones which stimulates the anterior pituitary gland. Then they secrete the follicle stimulating hormone, that is FSH, to stimulate the growth of Graafian follicle, maturation of ovum and secretion of estrogen by follicle cells. The luteinizing hormone, that is LH, also from the anterior pituitary, stimulates release of ovum, formation of corpus luteum in the empty follicle and secretion of progesterone from the corpus luteum. Progesterone suspends ovulation during pregnancy, maintaining fetal connection with the uterine wall and controls the development of fetus in the uterus. Estrogen and progesterone stimulate development of the mammary glands during pregnancy. At the end of pregnancy, the corpus albicans secretes relaxin hormone, which relaxes the cervix and the ligaments of the pelvic girdle for easy birth of the young one. Estrogens and progesterone also regulate growth, maintenance and functions of secondary sex organs in female. So here you see the positive and the negative feedback from the hypothalamus, anterior pituitary, the ovary. So when the hormones, they are fed as a positive feedback and they increase in their concentration, and when they are not required, they are concentrated, they act for the negative feedback, and they do not permit the hypothalamus and the anterior pituitary to for the formation of the hormones. So this is about the hormonal control of the male and the female reproductive system. Next, we will take up the next topic tomorrow. Till then, please stay home and stay safe. Thank you.